Shoulder. Legionnaires, Rycon here, and welcome back to Kenshi. Tale of the Blade. Amongst blood and bodies, that blade can be seen, wielded by our young one, Cat. Cat has been scrapping his way through the hub over the past week, earning his keep around here by selling off the blunt tools these bandits use. And in a number of times he's found himself involved in those fights. Thankfully for Cat though, most of the folk here in the hub eye that blade of his warily. And while the hub is an independent entity, no one truly being friends of the United Cities or the Holy Nation, the bounty attached to that blade is tantalizing for a few. And if it weren't for the Holy Nation's less than stellar record when it came to bounties, there was a strong chance that the blade and the boy would be turned over. But there were many folk here who had had those previous relations. And let's just say, it doesn't always turn out well for those handing in the bounty. Cat would still have to be cautious though, as to who saw him wielding the blade. And for the most part, that blade would remain hidden, back in the chest of Cat's home. Cat was now surviving, carving out his own little niche in the hub. There wasn't much in the way of services here, but everyone had a place. And for Cat, that was cleaning up the mess. It left him with wounds, but each time Cat got knocked down, he got up stronger. The early days in Kenshi are always the bloodiest. And just like forging a blade, Cat would be hardened over time. And so with that, the days begin to pass on by. The bar staff had taken a liking to the strange kid, who brought in countless iron clubs, set to be sold off to wandering traders. Death was inevitable in the hub, and Cat was always close by, injured or no, to collect his dues. Once the boy had enough food for a while, Cat would hold on to those iron clubs, holding them up and down the hub until his muscles burnt and his body wished to break. He would push through that pain with the goal to become better. And if that wasn't enough, Cat took to carrying bodies, dumping them outside the walls of the hub. More often than not, the folk were twice his size, but it was a job that needed to be done, and it was another chance for Cat to train. The bandits didn't always take so kindly to seeing their own thrown unceremoniously from the walls of the hub. Even wielding the blade with one hand, it was clear that Cat was beginning to become proficient with it. But even so, there is only so much one can do against many. While Cat was certainly becoming a better fighter, he was still far from invincible. Lucky for him, the hungry bandits of the region were interested in only one thing: the food left over in his pockets. Difficult as it was, Cat would rise again and again, countless times. But the blade wasn't the only tool that Cat would need to study. No, there was the bow too, a junk bow in fact, a rickety crossbow sometimes employed by dust bandits. With it, Cat could strike from a distance. All the while he would be training his eye and his overall dexterity, an important part of the training regiment. Gradually, the boy grew more and more confident, until finally, months into his training, he could single-handedly take down a group of hungry bandits. A task that any accomplished guard could achieve, but for a punk kid like Cat, it showed him he could take care of himself. And with the iron clubs and other materials he scavenged from the bandits, he was getting closer and closer to that elusive 10,000 cats required to join the shinobi thieves. And it wasn't always bandits that troubled the hub. No, sometimes the local wildlife had a thing or two to say. And Cat was beginning to earn himself a good reputation. And as far as rules go, to the protectors go the spoils. Not everyone would lift their hands to help, but the ones that did had a pick of the meat and the leather that was left over. If Cat truly wanted that 10,000 to join the shinobi thieves, all it would take would be stealing from those that he lived alongside. While Cat's a survivalist, that just doesn't sit right. And so he'd toil away until he finally had those 10,000 cats. But by that time, Cat wasn't a boy anymore. The weeks of living in the hub turned to months, and those months, eventually, years. Cat was a man, grown up and fitting the blade a little bit better. It was finally time to see if this guild of shinobis was all they were cracked out to be. There wasn't much of an interview process, and the thieves made it clear that if the Holy Nation came a-knockin', they couldn't protect Cat from that 20,000 bounty. But years had passed and none came seeking him, not from the United Cities and the Holy Nations at least. There were plenty that would try their hand, and plenty that would end up dead, dumped outside of the city because of it. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Cat now has a sense of fraternity, of family. He finally had somewhere he could spend countless hours practicing with that blade of his. Swinging blades wasn't all Cat could learn from the thieves. The art of assassination was a difficult one to pull off, but the skill could prove invaluable to Cat come time. In addition to the training dummies, the thieves had multiple boxes with varying difficulties of tumblers, so that one might practice lockpicking. And while Cat outwardly wasn't a thief, the Holy Nation and the United Cities had branded him as one, and so it'd be worth picking up the skills he was expected to have. And this next stage of Cat's life would go on for some time. Making friends in the guild wasn't exactly easy. Even though Cat had the funds to join, the Phoenix Blade put an awfully big target on his back, and in turn, the back of the shinobi thieves. Cat couldn't remain with the thieves here forever. No, he'd give it one more month of training, then it'd be time to leave the hub behind. He'd learned so much about how to fight and survive from the residents of the hub, and from the thieves. But there was still so much more to learn out there in the world. Like, why did this blade mean so much to them? Why was it worth more than his life? Well, Cat knew one thing after his years in the hub. There was no way he was handing it over now. The blade was as much a part of him as the blood in his veins. An extension of the arm, part of the self. Now, just to give you an idea of how far Cat has come, these are his stats before this little montage. And afterwards, here is where we stand. He is by no means a one-man army, but he has skill enough to make it on his own. And so, we'll knuckle down for one more month, and we'll see where we stand after that. In the night surrounding the hub, often lights could be seen in the distance, those lights belonging to bandits. Here, Cat could truly test his mettle. And with only 2 left standing, Cat falls. Clearly much more of a warrior than he's ever been before. But these wounds would not be enough to kill. Cat needn't wait long before strength would return. Strength to pull himself up and away from the camp, and to return once his wounds had sealed. Cat never did take to losing well. After recovering, he would return. Truly a menace to the bandits that called the valleys of the hub home. With the local group of bandits removed from the equation, trade would increase to the hub. All of this caused Ketch, the local bartender, to grow even fonder of Cat. The young loner had brought a considerable amount of wealth her way, all in return for a few cats and a hot plate of food. Cat was now a bona fide killer, and with that came a bit of reputation. There were caravans that came and went from the hub, and Ketch had an in with some of those caravans. With the right word to the right person, Cat might just be able to find a new home on the road. And so Cat waited and waited and waited. Bandits and other folks from the waste continued to be a menace for the hub, and Cat continued to head them off. But no more trade caravans came. It was strange. It had been months, and the hub seemingly was cut off from the rest of the world. And so if Cat was to leave, it was starting to look like a caravan wouldn't be the way. Perhaps he'd have to wander off by himself. A dangerous prospect, but just when Cat had nearly given up hope, a wary group of travelers found their way to the hub. Outcasts, outlaws, past citizens of the holy nation, slaves that wandered unshackled. They had nothing to offer Cat, but little did they know all Cat needed was a reason to leave. And that reason was now this group. They barely talked, but they seemed to have a destination in mind. And so Cat's time at the hub would be coming to an end. Many years were spent toiling away here, and eventually working alongside the shinobi thieves to ensure the safety of this place. In the back of his mind, Cat blamed the lack of caravans on himself, on this blade. If nomads and traders were being stirred away, it was more than likely by the United Cities, or who's to say the Holy Nation could have their hand in this as well. Regardless, Cat was beginning to feel like he had overstayed his welcome, and so it was he would leave the hub behind, following this shambling band to what future he didn't know. But with the phoenix blade on his back, Cat trusted his future to it. And so here at the end of the episode, I'd like to review the additional progress that Cat has made. So once again, here are the stats of our lad before this second skip, and as you can see, we've made some fantastic progress with learning how to wield katanas properly. And yes, the Phoenix Blade is still classified as a katana, even though it's, more of a greatsword. And we're going to see those improve even more as Cat faces enemies that are tougher. As it stands at this stage, Cat can comfortably take on a whole group of dust bandits just by himself. And while he could walk off into the desert by himself, he doesn't exactly know his way around. And protecting this group here seems like a pretty good excuse. Where they will lead him, I have no idea, but that's all part of the adventure. I truly do hope you enjoyed today's episode. Short as it may be, I've covered just under 6 hours of playtime here. Yes, that early grind in Kenshi is a long one, but here we are. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment or a like to let me know if you enjoyed the show. For now, I have been Rycon. You have all been awesome. And until next time, stay